excited. So excited for this panel. And, we were just jamming on decentralized governance, what community ownership and participation looks like in a Web3 context. The excitement around what's possible for Web3 social media is the purpose of this discussion. It's why we are so excited to be working with Lens Protocol. And you guys have really galvanized the Web3 space, coming on stage in the last few months with an incredible vision for how Web3 can really put ownership back in the hands of users. We're excited to work with you. Lots of other projects are excited to work with you. I'm supposed to moderate this panel, so I'm going to sit here. Thank you. So I would just love you both to introduce yourselves, Lens Project. Bradley and Christina, you're both recent entrants into Web3, but have an amazing journey and career that's brought you here. Maybe you could just share a little bit about who you are, why and how you got to Lens.
Yeah, sure. So, it's crazy that, you were mentioning how much we've been able to rally the community around Web3 social. Lens is still on testnet, so we'll be going on to mainnet shortly, but we're incredibly excited. A bit on my background, I was at TikTok for around 2.5 years, kind of saw the rise of social video, which is also why I'm so excited to be partnering with Livepeer. And to me, it's one of the protocols that comes to mind when I think about Web3 social and the way we consume social content now, with video, being a large part of that, accelerated obviously through COVID and that route. But so Bradley and I, and I'll let him introduce himself in a second, we both were at TikTok together. We worked internally at the company on a, for lack of better word, like Web3 skunk work project. I was in the music team, Bradley was in distribution, business development, and we kind of just formed this group together because one issue that we saw at TikTok was, creators and the ad revenue share model doesn't work. And then also, attempts around a creator fund also don't work. And so we really saw Web3 and, the new different types of business models and ownership that it can open up as being, incredibly important. So we launched an NFT drop there in a first attempt to be part of a larger strategy. It is harder than you think to be able to do this in a Web2 company. So ultimately, a big reason why I came across to Aave was because, Stani had told me about Lens Protocol that they'd been building for, I think around 18 months. So it's been a long time in the works, and I was just very bought into the vision. I had seen, how it doesn't work in Web 2, and also when you try and innovate in Web 2, it's at a much slower pace. So that's a bit on my background and on the protocol.
And I'm Bradley. Hi, everyone. I, as Christina mentioned, was on the distribution team at TikTok, which people don't know what distribution means, although we've been talking about it quite a bit today. It's just how you push content out into the world. And so at TikTok, we were focused on how do you put, what was the TikTok experience look like on TV or on other screens, and what can you do beyond just the mobile experience. Working on the NFT project with Christina was a ton of fun, and I think we both came to the realization after the project that in order to help creators, which is one of my personal passions, best done out in a Web3 native space. We spent so much time. We got a lot of value out of explaining, everything from what is an NFT and what is Web3. We did together literally hundreds of times explaining that internally to folks. And I think we enjoyed that experience. It's a great way to learn how to communicate, which I think video is particularly useful for, is to communicate ideas, particularly in Web3, and particularly with NFTs, which are a visual medium largely. And so, yeah, I'm super excited. I basically just follow Christina wherever. She went to TikTok. I found TikTok. She joined Aave. I come to Aave. So, proud to call her my new boss. And yeah, super excited to be here.
Awesome. I want to put my colleague Eric on the spot for a minute and ask Eric, why are you excited about Web3 social?
There are a couple of things that are interesting. One, I've been recently thinking a lot about is this idea of content moderation, right? Which every large social media platforms eventually get to a place where they become like a expert in moderating content in that specific way. And because it's so specific, and because it's so specific, it's very hard for them to share this knowledge to the world. It becomes kind of like like the most valuable kept secret for these companies as well. It also becomes like the dirty secret inside, because these rules can only be enforced internally and they cannot be communicated externally in a transparent way. And this is such a, like, I think Web3 really just turned that around, right? And it reframes the question of like, how do we think about moderating content? How do we think about creating a transparent set of rules that actually rallies the community together to form like agreed upon values that then can be transparently moderated, rather than being internally moderated through these like secret workforces. And you know, the best examples in Web2 are kind of, you know, like I would say like Facebook moderation versus like Reddit subreddit moderation, right? Where subreddits are kind of a group of people who are volunteering. But I think Web3 takes that to another level, making it more transparent and making it more community driven. And I think that's just better for the internet and for people who want to congregate online.
I can add to that too, actually. What excites me, something I've realized, I think we've all sort of realized over time, is, you know, we think of video creators as like, oh, that's a YouTube creator, that's a TikTok creator, that's an actor, that's a this or that. The lines are continually being blurred. You know, we've seen like the Kardashians or Jake and Logan Paul or whoever it is. These are creators who distribute content on different platforms for different audiences. And as you realize that like these platforms that they're distributing on are not really set up for them to own their audience and their followers. And instead, you know, if you're on TikTok, you never made a video in your life, you grow your following there, but then you say, okay, well, now I want to monetize. I need to go get everyone from TikTok onto YouTube so I can put 4 ads in my video and get an ad rev share. And what this is sort of where Lens comes in, is reframing, saying if you're a creator and you distribute content to all these different places and you monetize in all these different ways, there's really not a great tool or system set up to do that for that type of person or groups of people, or even as a fan. You know, if you're commenting on videos, that's its own form of content creation. And so that's sort of what excites me about Lens. And, you know, of course, that's where Livepeer comes in as well. Doing video in a Web3 world is technically challenging because of big file size. You know, we all come to expect perfect, immediate content to play as soon as you open the app. And to bring that level of experience that centralized Web2 companies do quite well requires a lot of collaboration. That's why Lens and Livepeer are a great duo.
And I think to what you said, just quickly on secret workforces, and, you know, having, you know, we spend more than 5 hours a day probably on social, and we don't even realize it. And, you know, having an open, you know, algorithm or choose your own algorithm is what really excites me as well. Like, everything will be transparent. We don't realize how much of, you know, our thought process and what influences us and how we think is actually from what we're seeing on social, and we actually don't have any control on, you know, what's being fed to us and why. And so being able to, you know, have full transparency, you know, across the board on all aspects of content consumption, I think is important for us just generally, as social has become such a big part of our life.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could dig into the concept of a social graph, which, you know, I think a lot of people, when you know, they hear about Lens, it's like, oh, they're doing a decentralized social graph, or it's like Web3 social graph. Like, what's the Web2 social graph? Like, what's the problem with that? How is Lens kind of making social graphs Web3?
Yeah, I think Bradley touched on this really well. We don't own our followers, right? And so we also saw this with crypto Twitter. A lot of them want to actually go on TikTok, but they need to do a cold start of their entire followers. And so the idea with something like Lens is you would have, Lens is a protocol. We are not a social media app per se. The idea is we will have a bunch of, you know, social media products that are built on top of Lens. You could have a YouTube, you could have a TikTok. What I'm most excited about is that you will have completely new primitives and new applications that are enabled by the technology that's not available in Web 2, but I digress. Back to the point is that now you'll be able to take your social graph to whatever platform on Lens suits your needs. You might not also want to have your entire social graph on every platform that you engage in. For example, I probably, don't want my LinkedIn followers to be following me on Twitter. So the ability to be able to customize and build in different types of extensions to the existing Lens modularity and control your graph, control who follows you on what platform, but also have the flexibility to go where you want and when you want with both your content and your social graph.
Awesome. So Lens just hosted an amazing hackathon with ETH Global called LF Grow, which was your first go-to-market, I think, with the product. You had, hundreds of hackers around the world hacking on Lens. Livepeer was part of that hackathon and others. What were your goals for that hackathon? What did you ship to hackers for that? And, what's the debrief been internally for you all?
Yeah, so we've been very excited by the projects that we saw. This is the first social media Web3 hackathon. So we saw around 300 hackers. We had a bunch of amazing sponsors such as you guys. And I think a few learnings are, we are building and we're growth hacking Web3 social together. So it's not just one protocol. I think the beauty of what we saw is hackers were using multiple protocols. They were building, for example, token-gated live streaming using Livepeer, Lip protocol, and Lens. And so I think we're going to continue to see that. And, a lot of the extensions, so we had Superfluid up here earlier that gave Lens a shout out. They've also built in creator monetization streaming, kind of similar to a patron model. And so we saw a bunch of interesting front ends, use cases across a lot of different protocols and our partners, and also extensions to the actual modularity and tooling, which was really interesting. So I'm really excited by what's next. A bunch of those companies actually are starting to get funded, which is interesting because this was still on testnet. We're not on mainnet yet, but there were governance tools that were built. It was really exciting.
Mm-hmm. I'll shout out one project that I saw from the hackathon, which was a way to turn your NFTs into 3D and then make them do dances. And I was like, that is such a cool idea, very creative. And the idea that you can take your NFTs and turn them into IP that you actually own in different characters, I think is a cool Web3 native extension of social media. We think of social media for how can I as a creator, as a real person, but I also now have these NFTs that I can turn into characters that are potentially different elements of my own personality or other ideas. And that is a whole new layer of what it means to be social with all this new IP.
Awesome. Could you maybe talk about the modularity of Lens? I was actually on the judging panel for LF Grow and saw so many hacks on specific modules of Lens. So that's an interesting concept. I'm not sure how many people look at protocols with the idea of picking a module. How does that work? And how what's the vision for kind of ecosystem development on Lens with that composability modularity?
Yeah, so we have 3 modules at the moment on Lens. The idea is we'll continue to ship out modules to the community to be able to be built on, but currently Lens protocol is based on an NFT infrastructure layer. So we have the profile module, we have the follower module, and we have the publication module. Maybe I'll give a good example of how I saw it used. So you wouldn't think, about a Lens protocol that someone would have built an e-commerce platform. But, the way they used it was with the publication model, which is essentially when you post. That was when, you uploaded and published a good to be sold. Then when the NFT got minted and collected, that became an actual sale of the e-commerce good. And an interesting part of the Lens modularity of the publication module is that there's a mirror feature, which is essentially like a retweet referral fee. And so someone also built in, if I wanted to send this good that I saw online to a friend, essentially I would be mirroring it, and then I would get a fee as a curator. And this is another thing we're particularly excited for on Lens with the publication feature. I will get a fee if someone then ultimately ended up buying that good. So that's the publication feature, and then you have your profile, NFT, and module, which you can build in different types of extensions. For example, I want to limit my followers to people who have, own a certain NFT or have engaged with my content in a certain way. I can build that in to my profile NFT and all these different types of conditioning as well. Back to my point around, being able to control who follows you on different platforms. There's so many different things you can build in.
I'll add another example of how we use the modules. Like, a lot of what I spend my time doing is talking to different projects and companies and saying, like, how could we apply these modules and the Lens social graph to different types of companies. And so one example that particularly with creators it's useful is, today if I write an article and I tweet about it and then Christina retweets it and shares it, and she has a lot of followers, and because of her and her retweeting it, I get all the, I get lots more views, I get more followers, and it helps me. But there's no way for me to know necessarily that it was how many people viewed the article because Christina shared it on my behalf. And with Lens, that's sort of baked into the profile, like the publication and follow modules. So if I today now write an article and post it to Lens and Christina shares it, we can now track the exact number of people who saw it because they collected it. It's the collect module. And then I can now, as Christina was saying, compensate her, sort of like an affiliate marketing scheme. And what that means is even if you're someone who doesn't create videos or content or anything, but we all consume these things, you now have an economic incentive to be like a quality curator. And that can be its own sort of form of creation, is saying, look, these are my favorite podcasts. This is my favorite people to read. And we can both share. And me and the original creator can share in the upside that comes with that.
Awesome. Amazing. Eric, as we think about Livepeer and how we fit in the future of Web3 social, maybe you want to share a little bit about kind of the core primitives that, you and the team are working on.
Yeah, for sure. I think the few things that we've been thinking about, one is this idea of verifiability, right? And so right now when we share posts, when we share video, or any kind of asset on social media, it just lives in someone's database. Now, once it becomes Web3, this verifiability is going to be tied to the ownership, because all the things that we share are going to be embedded on the blockchain. Not necessarily embedded on the blockchain, but associated with our identities. So being able to verify that something that's shared actually was created by me or was originally posted by me, that becomes very important. And the other thing is continuing to integrate with other parts of the ecosystem, like you guys mentioned, right? It's very much a collaboration effort between many protocols. So just making those integrations much easier for developers, so that it shortens the burden for someone to create these applications, can become very important.
We're thinking ultimately at the end of the day, it would be great for Lens to become like a Shopify, right? Where you don't really realize that you're coding, where you can just grab different elements, different tools within the ecosystem and build your own app. And so as a creator, maybe I want to build an application for my fans. I'd be able to do that on Lens and utilize all of the composable tools that are out there.
I was going to add, there's one important piece to that, which is if you think about Web 2 companies, the goal, the way they're structured is they're trying to sell ads, and the best way to sell more ads is to get you to spend more time using their products. And so it's a game of trying to get you as addicted to, whatever platform is possible. And I'm a huge, I know that, and I use TikTok all the time, and I love it. It's time well spent, in my opinion. But it is, on the flip, there's also it's a double-edged sword. And so what happens is when the incentives are no longer to maximize the number of users or time spent on different applications, those applications and those products can focus on just making the best experience for whatever it is they're doing. And then you can plug into everything else that's already been built on Lens. And that's sort of, everyone benefits sort of from that structure.
I have one last point on that because I know we're speaking to developers here. The beauty of Lens as well is you don't need to worry about building for, for bringing users in. You can build a quality product, and when people come with their social graph, they come with those network effects. So both from a creator, there's a benefit because you obviously have ownership of your content and your social graph, but also from the developer side as well, because you don't need to spend millions of dollars on customer acquisition as you do in Web 2.
Awesome. Elon last week tweeted that he wanted to buy Twitter and maybe decentralize it, but he would still own it, so not really decentralized. Lots of tweets coming out on how, wow, it's already possible in Web3 with, 5 or 6 different pieces all working on it together. You guys have been in this space for a few months now. What are your thoughts on what that Web3 tech stack looks like? You just saw the hackathon, hackers using different technologies. Curious how you're seeing that collaborative Web3 tech stack landscape and what the future of that could be.
Yeah, I think the difference being in Web 2, right, you're building in isolation, and in Web 3, you're building together. It's not a zero-sum game. Everyone's collaborating. I think that actually has a lot of scalability in terms of being able to build quicker. I predicted it was going to be social summer when I first started at Lens. I think the fact that we're getting big public figures such as Elon that are starting to recognize and see the flaws in Web 2 social. We have 10 years of learning now. And I think we're really at an inflection point. And so we welcome the mainstream press around it. But we're very focused on building this in the right way with, the right people in the space to be able to do it right.
And if last week's headlines are any indication, Elon's probably learning a lesson. We've learned it, working in big tech ourselves, that it's hard to make big changes like fundamentally within a big Web 2 company, and we are firm believers it's best to just start from scratch and build something new. And trust me, we are waving our arms. Elon, look at Lens.
We don't have shareholders to worry about.
Yeah, it definitely, I think, like starting from scratch and making things composable feels like there's just so much more room to innovate on top of that, right? And there's so much less to lose if something doesn't work out. And even if something was working and it doesn't work out anymore, it's fine. Just like fork it and create a new thing that makes it work better, right? And at the end of the day, for the end user, there's so much more value that can be brought and eliminates a lot of the risks.
Yeah, and the other piece is that you're able to focus and specialize. Lens is focused on being a highly flexible protocol. Livepeer is focused on creating the best live streaming and video experience, which is not limited to anything with Lens. There's so many applications of that. We talk to other companies like Disco working on verified credentials, and everyone's specializing, whereas trying to do the same thing in a giant company with a variety of priorities, shareholders to please, quarterly reports, red tape, not taking risks, and limited time and attention any real decision maker can give to any one of these areas is just fundamentally a different challenge.
Awesome. Well, we are at time, but this was a really amazing session. If there are any burning questions from the audience, go for it.
Okay. I want to use Lens on a product I'm working on, but how do you think it's going to work in a world when we have multiple chain on L2? Are we going to be able to bring our social graph through different chains, even though maybe not just yet? Is this something that you thought about?
Yeah, so we're on Polygon at the moment, and the idea is we will stay focused on them in the foreseeable future, just to be able to build quality products on the protocol. But obviously with all, Web3, we're mindful that it is going to be a multi-chain world. At present, there is a little bit of limited functionality in that sense. However, we do have an API where you'll be able to obviously read what's on the Lens protocol, and so there's abilities to integrate in a more limited way. But longer term, we'll move the protocol cross chain for sure.
Thanks.
I know you're still on testnet, but have you done any like scaling stuff? Do you have any ideas of what your limits are, or like have you done load testing?
You know?
Good one for our developers.
Yeah.
I believe we have, but I don't have that data in front of me. We're happy to connect you though with our product managers if you'd like. Sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina and Bradley, so much for joining. Really excited to continue collaborating with you. I know, like, we're both, this is still very early in this journey, but we're on it together and really excited to be working with you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Likewise,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.